President Trump signed executive actions Tuesday to advance construction on two oil pipelines that the Obama administration had stopped. His actions on the Keystone XL and Dakota Access Pipeline are part of a number of directives he signed that reverse key actions of the Obama administration. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer faced questions about those orders at Tuesday's briefing, but that was not the big headline out of Washington today. Spicer faced a grilling from reporters on why President Trump is renewing his claim that millions of people voted illegally without citing any evidence.
Does the president believe that millions voted illegally in this election, and what evidence do you have of widespread voter fraud in this election, if that's the case?
The president does believe that. He has stated that before. I think he stated his concerns of voter fraud and people voting illegally during the campaign. And he continues to maintain that belief based on studies and evidence that people have presented to him.
Exactly what evidence? Speaker Ryan today said there's no evidence. The National Association of Secretaries of State say that they don't agree with the president's assessment. What evidence do you have?
As I said, I think the president has believed that for a while based on studies and information he has.
Spicer also would not rule out a government investigation into the possibility of illegal voting. Jordan Fabian is White House correspondent at The Hill. He's in our Washington bureau. Jordan, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So Sean Spicer was very clear to say President Trump believes that millions voted illegally without saying it was the administration's view writ large. So what do you make of Spicer's handling of those questions?
Well, Elaine, for those of us in the briefing room, it's been a bit like entering the Twilight Zone every time there's a briefing, because there are these bizarre claims from President Trump that keep coming up. And what I make of today's briefing is that clearly President Trump has not backed off his belief, but Spicer hedged a bit in his description. He never said he personally believes in these claims that millions of voters voted illegally, only that the president believes it. So there's some room there that kind of indicates that, yes, the president believes it, but they're not really going to do anything about it. And that tells me that there's not a ton of evidence backing up their claims.
Well, as you know, lawmakers from both sides question Mr. Trump's claim about voter fraud. What are you seeing in responses to this claim?
Well, I think it's disbelief. If you talk to Republicans on Capitol Hill, what they say is like the Trump administration in its first days is taking one step forward and two steps back. You know, they make some progress on areas they care about, the Keystone Pipeline, like you just mentioned, but then they step in it. They talk about these unsubstantiated claims that millions of people have voted illegally. Donald Trump goes to the CIA and starts bragging about his election victory and says some incorrect information about the size of the crowd at his inauguration. These things are distracting from the goals that Republicans want to get done with Donald Trump together, and they're very concerned about that.
You know, I want to ask you about Russian hacking in the Senate Intel Committee, but first, I'm wondering, Jordan, is there a political upside to President Trump repeating these claims? Is there any upside at all?
Well, the one upside I could see is that it's motivating his supporters who are very upset with the news media and upset with the political establishment. Even though there's no evidence to these claims, this sort of situation pits the Trump administration against the White House in these news briefings where there's this back and forth happening. And I think for the Trump supporters, it's energizing to see Donald Trump and Sean Spicer fight back and berate the media about things that they believe. So that's one thing that's happening. On the downside is, though, that most Americans don't believe in these claims, and they could be losing credibility with the public if they continue to repeat them.
Yeah, we'll continue to see how that plays out. All right, the Senate Intelligence Committee says it is moving forward with a probe of Russian hacking. What is the balance that Republicans on that committee have to strike, given Mr. Trump's past comments downplaying Russia's hacking?
They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Obviously, during the election, this was a major issue that top Republicans like John McCain and even Senator Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Senate Republicans, said they wanted to investigate. Now, if they issue a public report saying that, yes, we do agree with the CIA that the Russians did help elect Donald Trump, that could indeed hurt his legitimacy. And now Senate Republicans have lost a partner they want to have to get their agenda done. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle this investigation. They're going to have to handle it with kid gloves.
All right, Jordan Fabian in Washington for us. Jordan, thanks.